Hey, welcome to the Monday morning show. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Ryan Hensley. Good morning. It is great to see you. I'm back from my vacation. I was in Palm Springs. It was hot. It's nice. It was really nice. Palm Springs is fun. It's kind of like, I don't know what I imagined Vegas was like, 60, 70 years ago. It's like not super big and overrun, but in 10 years, it probably will be like mini Vegas. But it was hot, and now it's hot back here in the Bay. Thank goodness.
Did you go like an Airbnb pool, like chill out?
Yes, it was like the whole family. My dad was there, my brother was there, his family was there, so it was fun. A lot of bonding, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was great.
Like hot?
It was hot. I got a little color, which is nice because usually I'm hella white. So I got that going for me. So today we're talking Niners, we're talking Rodgers, we're talking Lance. We're gonna even talk Michael Jordan and the Warriors because why not? But let's start with this. We were just chilling yesterday on Easter Sunday, trying to mind our own business. Then all of a sudden, the freaking Ravens signed Odell Beckham Jr. for a lot of money, which surprised everyone because, first of all, the Ravens don't really throw the ball that much to wide receivers. Second of all, everyone thought Beckham was going to go to the Jets because they're going to get Rodgers, and Rodgers wants Beckham, and he made it pretty clear. They didn't get him. Then like an hour later, there's a rumor that pops up on Twitter that the Niners would be willing to trade Trey Lance for the second and a fourth. And I'm thinking, are these connected? Are these connected? The fact that the Jets seem to be blowing it, getting Aaron Rodgers, are the Niners floating this Trey Lance stuff? Or is this Trey Lance stuff coming out because the Niners actually think they're in play for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, it's a tough question. So, first of all, I don't know the source, the guy who tweeted that out. I don't know who that is. I don't know.
Me neither.
Maybe it's legit. Maybe it's just some made up BS that he's like, reading the tea leaves, throwing something out, see if it sticks. That could be just
possible.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. As far as Aaron Rodgers, man, the only way I would be okay with trading Trey Lance is if they were to go get a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
And I feel like that's the only way the fan base would be okay with it. Sorry to cut you off, but real quick, I put a poll out like 30 minutes ago saying, who do you want to start the season as the Niners quarterback? As of 30 minutes ago, 67% of the 1,000 votes have come in for Trey Lance. If they trade him, it's going to be very, very unpopular. The Niners don't really like to piss off their fans. Only way they'll be happy is if they get Aaron Rodgers in return.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 49er fans, a lot of them at least, they want at least the possibility of greatness. And if you aren't getting Aaron Rodgers and you're getting rid of Trey Lance, that kind of eliminates that possibility in my head, right? I think, again, this Brock Purdy's such a big question mark. Who knows how he's going to look when he returns? Who knows when he's going to return? And who knows if he ever has the potential of being great. With Trey Lance, it's an unknown. Maybe he doesn't end up working out at all. Maybe he's a complete bust one day. But the high side of Trey Lance makes a lot of fans they hope for greatness again, like they had before with Joe Montana and Steve Young and even Garcia, I guess you could say, right? And the only way that you're going to get past that with the fan base, I think, at least from my perspective, is with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's definitely a possibility. I know the 49ers want him. I know Aaron Rodgers, despite him saying he's not going to San Fran, he originally wanted to be a 49er.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see it working out. He's from this area.
Does he seem like he knows what he wants? I mean, or does he seem like he changes his mind every 2 weeks?
I'm pretty sure if they were able to work it out in San Francisco, he might have said, "I'm not going to San Fran" because
he didn't think he would.
Yeah, but I think he would. Yeah.
I think he would too, and I feel like as long as the Jets keep bungling this, like what team is waiting in the weeds to get maybe the Ravens? The Ravens are interesting. Like, why did they go after Odell Beckham Jr. for Lamar? Or are they thinking, hey, man, if Lamar wants a fully guaranteed contract, why don't we trade him and go get Rodgers? You know what I'm saying? Maybe the Ravens do something like that. Maybe, I don't know, but it seems like the Niners could be that team. Maybe Baltimore's that team that gets Rodgers if the Jets fumble it, because they look like they're cutting close to fumbling this.
I didn't think about that. So that's an interesting point, like Aaron Rodgers going to the Ravens. But I did think, to me, what it meant, my immediate reaction was, I think this whole time the Ravens thought they were going to have Lamar Jackson back, and they used what they did for a negotiation tactic, right? And I think that's why a lot of the league hasn't made an offer on Lamar Jackson, because they know ultimately Baltimore is just going to match it, right? Because they have the opportunity to match whatever offer is given to Lamar Jackson. So the Ravens could just match whatever offer Lamar's given, and now whatever organization offered for him looks foolish for whatever quarterback they do bring in, right? Their second choice, or they maybe have a quarterback on their team right now that everyone thinks is going to be the guy, but they tried to make an offer for Lamar Jackson that kind of undercuts whoever quarterback is on their team. So I think the Ravens, that's why Lamar Jackson's not getting an offer. I think the Ravens honestly planned this whole time, oh, he'll be back. Worst case, we'll just give him what is that, 5th-year option or something like that, right? So
yep.
I think Lamar Jackson's going back to the Ravens, honestly. And I think the Jets are still going to try to work it out with Aaron Rodgers. But if they're unable to, I definitely think the 49ers would be into that for sure.
So, okay, so if Lamar Jackson goes back to the Ravens and the Jets don't work it out with Rodgers, then the Niners are the team. So I think it's people aren't really talking about this, but I think it's a very real possibility that the Niners, maybe they don't have as good of a chance as the Jets, but it feels like the Jets' chances are getting worse by the day, and the Niners are kind of chilling in Santa Clara being like, we don't really have a chance for this, do we? Do we? Yeah. Oh, we do. Oh, we do. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are messing this up.
Right.
Like, I don't know. So it seems to me that the fact that the Ravens pulled off this stunner yesterday, and then we get this report, which may or may not be true, about what the Niners are looking for Lance, it feels like it's not a coincidence. It feels like the more of a reality Aaron Rodgers becomes for the 49ers, the more willing they'd be to trade Trey Lance for whatever, frankly. Yeah. And they might even trade him for less than that if they get Aaron Rodgers, because frankly, no one would care anymore. Unless in 5 years, Rodgers is retired and Trey Lance is the next Aaron Rodgers. Then people would care, but not now.
Yeah, I mean, this situation with Rodgers, it feels like kind of like when Brady left the Patriots. A lot of guys were like, oh, we don't want him. I've seen that from some of the 49ers fan base. I think they changed their tune, though, as soon as he signed with the 49ers. Yeah,
didn't they just make this mistake with Tom Brady 3 years ago? Like, oh, he's done. We want someone who has a future. Like, dude, just get the ring, please.
Yeah, dude, that's all I want. All I want is an elite quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers is that. I don't care about his politics or his personality. When he's on the field with the 49ers weapons, they'll definitely be top front runners to win that Super Bowl.
The only thing with Rodgers, though, is he is becoming like insufferable.
Yeah.
Like, not only is he a diva attention, I'm not gonna say attention. Like, what's a nice way to say that? You know the word. But he's like, man, he's like worse than Favre was at the end. Like, is he gonna be there at OTAs? Is he gonna be there at minicamp? Like, he's such a diva, and you don't even know when he's gonna be on the field. He's still great though. He's still a much better option with what the Niners have, but he's annoying as hell.
I think a lot of that has to do with the situation they had out there in Green Bay. Like, I think he was frustrated with the lack of weapons he was given. I think he was frustrated because he wasn't involved with the roster building, right? Not making excuses for him at all.
No, you're right. You're right.
I don't like his
but I mean, he seems like the kind of guy, like, you could give him everything and he's still going to find a reason to be upset about something, but maybe not. We'll see.
I think if they're winning, if he comes to the 49ers, I think they would win a lot of games. And I think as long as he's winning, he's going to be happy. So I think it could work out. I'd want it. I would trade Trey Lance for Aaron Rodgers. I would. I know a lot of people get mad about that, but I would, and no question.
I feel like this is a reality. He would only cost the Niners $14 million against the cap. The Jets, again, all I was reading was two days ago. Oh, the Jets, they're going to have a visit with Odell Beckham Jr., and this shows that things are heating up with Aaron Rodgers. Well, Beckham signs with the Ravens. Are they still heating up with Jets and the Rodgers? With the Jets and Rodgers, or is that cooling down and our team circling?
That's the thing, too. Lamar Jackson put something on his Instagram story when Odell Beckham signed with the Ravens. So I think Lamar Jackson's going back. Like, he's happy.
Cool.
So I think it's really Aaron Rodgers. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. It is between the Jets and the Niners.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. And it seems like every day the Niners look like they're in a better spot. So something to watch. Game Time says, trade Trey, I'm done till Lynch, Kyle are gone. Yes. Again, I think the only way they trade Trey is if they get Aaron Rodgers, because it would be too unpopular, and the Niners really do care what their fans and critics say. Yeah. When was the last super unpopular thing the Niners did? When was the last time they said, screw what our fans think, we're going to do it anyway? Last time. Buckner. Correct.
Yeah.
Buckner. And they're still not living that down. They're sensitive about it. Josh Wyatt says Niners need to tackle a cornerback and an edge rusher. Those are premium positions that will go in the top 20 picks. Trading Trey doesn't make any sense if it doesn't help you move into that range. Well, it does. you have 11 picks and you get something you can package. You could get up that high. You could.
I mean, that's the thing that they would a second and a fourth, man. I don't know. Are we going to talk about that later? Like what we?
Yeah, let's talk about it now. Let's talk about it now. So the report yesterday is that the Niners would be willing to trade Trey Lance for a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick in the upcoming draft. On the one hand, it feels low because they spent 3 first-round picks for him. On the other hand, it feels a little unrealistic because he hasn't played in 3 years, and it's hard to say what a guy's trade value is coming off a 3-year layoff. A 3-year. I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that.
Yeah,
and it's not like he had a track record to begin with. So what do you think about this valuation?
I've been thinking about it, man. I think differently from a lot of people I've been seeing comment on this. I think the 49ers would not take a second and a fourth, and I think there are several teams that would offer a second and a fourth. If they really only want a second and a fourth for Trey Lance, if that's true, I think he's gone because I think there are a few teams that would do that. Like there's the Texans, the Commanders, the Colts, the Panthers, the Saints, the Falcons. They all have second and fourth round picks, and they don't have a quarterback. And
what if the Jets miss out on Rodgers?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Although I don't know if Robert Saleh's in a position to take on a project in year 3, having to make the playoffs, but I don't know. We'll see. He's in win now mode.
Yeah, when you're a coach of the Jets, you're always in project mode, it seems like. But I mean, if they get Rodgers, they're probably good. I just think, for me, like Trey Lance, the 49ers trade 3 first-rounders or 2 first-rounders, and they spend another first, and they bought a third. That's to move up and draft Trey Lance third. Nothing has really changed except he got injured. So I don't understand why another team wouldn't be like, hey, this is our opportunity. We can give him a second and a fourth. A team like
because the thing with Trey is that it's not like he was the number 1 recruit out of high school. It's not like he went to Ohio State and won the national championship. It's not like he played 3 years of college. Like his value was always speculative. Was always theoretical. And the fact that now it's been 3 years without him playing, it's like, well, that initial value comes into question. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that makes it tricky with Trey.
There's a lot of reports.
Like he's like Anthony Richardson. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't really have a resume. He was at North Dakota State for 1 year. That's it.
Well, that's the thing. The Niners felt he was worth it, right? And then the Falcons.
Yes.
Falcons,
and a lot of teams did.
Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago.
Well, 2 years ago. The Falcons were going to – when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, it was reported the Falcons were going to spend that seventh pick overall on Trey Lance.
I think 4th. They had the 4th pick on
it.
Yeah, so I think they were right after. They took Kyle Pitts 4th, I believe.
Yeah, and then a lot of people are saying if Trey Lance waited another year, he'd probably be the number 1 draft pick in the draft.
True.
So there's a high evaluation on Trey Lance, and for a second and a fourth seems like a bargain to me.
I mean, really, the pandemic made him a tough evaluation because who the hell in the history of the sport was a top 3 pick after a year off?
Yeah,
I mean, no, it never happened.
Yeah.
But it had to happen because of the pandemic, and so that's why there's so much confusion about Trey Lance. He hasn't played in 3 years, and it's not his fault. There was a pandemic. He got benched. He didn't get benched. He got slow played, like Patrick Mahomes got slow played, and then he got injured. I mean, 3 things that were completely out of his control. And so now, yeah, maybe he's worth a second and a fourth, but the way I took it was, if that got leaked, these are negotiations. You start higher. You're asking prices higher than what you end up accepting. So if someone calls the Niners and say, what's Trey going to cost? And they say second and a fourth, to me, that means they would accept a second or maybe a third and a fourth. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just think he's worth more than that second round pick to the Niners. And I think a lot of teams would offer that. I really do. I just think, hey, we can get the guy the Niners traded 3 firsts for with a second. Let's freaking do it. Right. And there's teams out there that have so many picks that it would be.
But again, though, with Trey, it's tough because what do? Do you trade for him and sit him some more? Or do you trade for him and play him right away? And how many teams really would feel confident about playing Trey right away?
Yeah, I mean,
like the Jets. Can the Jets do that? Can the Jets afford that?
Jets probably would be cautious about it. I don't think the Jets would.
Texans could do it.
But
Texans could do it.
Yeah, the Texans.
But the Texans might just draft Bryce Young. You know what I mean? Like they could just do that. So
the Panthers could do it.
Panthers could do it.
Think about it. Some of these teams.
But the Panthers are going to draft a quarterback with their first pick.
Yeah, they are. But there's a lot of teams that have early first rounders that they could, like the Texans, for example, have 2 first rounders. They could spend 2 first rounders on other positions, really make their team strong, and then bring in Trey Lance. And D'Amico's seen Trey Lance; he knows what he is. So I think if the Niners are willing to accept a second, I think he's gone. I just don't think they are. I really don't think they are.
I think they'd accept the second if they get Aaron Rodgers. Again, for
Yeah.
them to say, because we're going to talk about the risks, like what could the downside of possibly trading Trey Lance. If they trade him and don't have Rodgers, and they're saying, "Well, we believe in Brock and Darnold," that is
Crazy.
really risky. That's walking a tightrope with no net right there.
Yeah.
But if you have Rodgers, I mean, it's a safe play. That's
Yeah.
really no one crushes you for that. So
Yeah.
I don't care how much they say they like Sam Darnold. I don't see them really put themselves in a position where Sam Darnold could start week 1 and Brock Purdy's injured. I just don't see it. That takes some serious courage, and I don't think the Niners have the courage of their convictions like that. I just don't think they do.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's going to happen unless they get a Rodgers. If they get Rodgers,
right,
fine. Like nobody's going to say nothing. I mean, there'll be a few people mad in the beginning because of his personality and his politics, but at some point that would go away once he starts playing, and because that would be the best quarterback we've had since Steve Young. Like,
yeah, and if anyone was upset about the move, they wouldn't even say it either. It would be a local holiday, and anyone that had misgivings would just shut up.
yeah, no, that's why. But if they don't get Rodgers, I don't think they're going to, man. Sam Darnold, like we kept hearing they're not going to play Trey Lance because they're in a Super Bowl window. So what's the solution? Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold.
Come on, man.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't think that you could argue that they should. You could argue that Trey Lance's value could get even lower if the Niners botch this. You know, if they sit him, if they bench him, if he gets hurt again. But you could also argue that if he ends up being good and the Niners don't have a competent replacement, everyone gets fired. So let's talk about the consequences of potentially trading Trey Lance without getting Aaron Rodgers to placate the masses. Let's say they just trade Trey Lance and roll with Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. What are the possible range of outcomes there?
That is, what's a good word? Ballsy? Like that is a decisive move if they do that. If they get rid of Trey Lance and they're just like, we're going to roll with Brock Purdy coming off a UCL injury, and we're going to roll with Sam Darnold, the consequences could be really bad, especially if Trey Lance goes somewhere else and balls out and Brock Purdy doesn't turn out to be a franchise quarterback. Essentially, to me, they're going to.
So real quick, we're talking risk reward here, and the reward is like a 3rd round pick, maybe a 2nd round pick. They're asking for a 2nd and a 4th, reportedly. That's the rumor. So let's say they get a 2nd and a 4th for Trey Lance. That's the reward. Now let's lay out all the risks.
Yeah, all the risks are Kyle Shanahan
all the risks.
And John Lynch are out of here, because like if you spend all that money to get Trey Lance and then you get rid of him for a second and then he does
before even giving him a chance.
Right,
he didn't fail.
Yeah. And then he does well. And then Brock Purdy doesn't work out.
And Sam Darnold continues to be Sam Darnold.
You're fired.
You're screwed.
That's how Kyle Shanahan finally would get fired.
So you put your career at risk for a 2nd and a 4th.
Yeah.
It's not my career, but I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I don't buy it.
It's too much at risk.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. That's why I'm adamant about
it's your reputation too, man. I mean, it would be the dumbest series of events ever. You gave up 3 firsts and a 3rd for a guy. You got rid of him after 4 starts before he even proved a thing. You traded low. You replaced him with a guy who was injured and a guy who everyone knew was trash. They both, didn't work out, which is like, wow, what a surprise. And then Trey Lance ends up being the guy you thought he would be initially. Like, it's a comedy of errors at that point. Now, I'm not saying it would work out that way. Maybe Brock Purdy's the truth. Maybe Sam Darnold is the next Alex Smith. If you compare the beginning of Alex Smith's career to the beginning of Sam Darnold's career, there are a lot of parallels. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that Sam Darnold ended up turning his career around. And frankly, Alex Smith wasn't exactly a Hall of Famer. Maybe Trey Lance, could be that because he's still young and he seems to be taking the right steps, at least this offseason. So big consequences if they get this wrong.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you're right. It could work out. Maybe Brock Purdy comes back. He's just as good, if not better, than he was before, and he continues to get better, and he becomes franchise quarterback. Then nobody's going to say nothing. But throughout that process, there's going to be a lot of heat on those guys, And I just don't feel like they're ballsy enough to be like, yes, we know this is how it's going to work out. I don't know.
Yeah, they might think like, we prefer Brock. We don't think Trey Lance is going to reach his potential, the potential we thought he had 2 years ago, but they don't know. And I think they're a little scared that they're wrong. Like they've been wrong so many times at the quarterback position. I mean, they didn't really know, but we've talked about it so many times, but they didn't know about Brock until Brock played, and he played at the end of the season when the offense was already clicking. He had a bunch of good players. Trey hasn't been in that position. So I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I really
Trey
think,
won real quick. Trey won that week 16 game against the Texans. What if he had just kept playing that year? Maybe
yeah,
he would have kept. Well, he didn't like get hurt. He won. Then they
yeah.
benched him for a guy who was injured and wasn't playing well. Maybe the Niners win the Super Bowl that year if he's playing. You don't know.
To me, it all boils down like it makes sense to me that they're going to use this opportunity with Brock Purdy hurt to finally see what they have in Trey Lance, and then they can make their decision.
Unless they get Rodgers.
Yeah, or
Unless they get Rodgers.
To see it. Like I feel like they're going to use this opportunity if they don't get Aaron Rodgers to see what they have in Trey Lance, and then if they want to, they could trade him during the year or after the season. I just don't think he's going anywhere this year. It wouldn't make any sense to me.
I just feel like the fact that Jalen Hurts exists gives Trey Lance another chance with the Niners, because even, again, they can think what they want to think, but they see what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, and they got to acknowledge that there's a chance Trey could do the same thing. And I think they know that they're not putting him in the same position. They don't have the same coaches, but there's a chance and a hope that he could do it on his own. And right now he's with Patrick Mahomes and Jeff Christensen and working on the mechanical flaws in his throwing motion, which we've discussed. And right now, based on the little clips we're seeing, it looks like he's working on the things he needs to work on. So Niners might want to just see what it looks like in camp before they make a decision on this.
And you could make an argument because there's tons of examples, right? Josh Allen, Peyton Manning, a bunch of guys that struggled really bad in the beginning of their career. And you can make an argument. What's that?
Steve Young.
Steve Young.
Steve Young.
You can make an argument that Trey Lance will benefit more than any of those guys because he has the least amount of experience out of all of those guys that started off bad and got better. And Trey Lance is the least experienced out of all of them. So there's an argument to be made that he might be able to do it more likely than those guys were able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Corey Soto says, just please let it be somewhere with a good jersey. Been a Niner fan for 27 years, but fandom isn't hereditary. It's a choice. What's faithful? Ooh, I'm telling you, this is why I don't think the Niners. This is why I think you're going to win that bet with Larry Krueger. I don't think Jed and Kyle and John want to just straight up enrage 70% of the fan base. Yeah. They know if they get Rodgers, everyone's happy. But if they don't, and to just trade Trey Lance after 4 stars and not giving him a chance and say, don't worry, everyone, trust us. We like Brock and Darnold. Dude, a lot of people are going to be pissed, and they're not that kind of organization, man. They're basically just want to keep people happy.
And
because frankly, if they keep people happy and keep losing in NFC championships, they'll be fine. Yeah. They could piss people off trying to go for the big one if they, do what they think is right.
I mean, they have enough picks. If they want to move up to the 2nd and the 4th, they can do it with draft picks. They don't have to trade Trey Lance to do that.
All right, let's talk about the other big news from the weekend. Trey Lance and Patrick Mahomes are working out together. The coach is Jeff Christensen, who played in the league, drafted in 1983 in that legendary class. Didn't play a lot in the league, but was in the league for about 5 years. And, has worked with some serious coaches. It's quarterbacks. If you don't know his story real quick, he worked with Kirk Cousins, been working with Patrick Mahomes. But this is the dude. He went to Eastern Illinois. He was based in Chicago. He started working with Jimmy Garoppolo in high school when Jimmy was a pitcher and a middle linebacker. And he showed this guy how to throw a spiral and how to throw with a quick release. He basically built Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo was just a high school athlete. He got his hands on him and told his dad, this guy's going to make $100 million in the NFL. The dad was like, what? And Jimmy put his head down and learned all this stuff. So this guy's legit. He basically saw it with Jimmy in high school and spoken into existence. I'm going to make this guy $100 million.
Yeah.
We pointed out what Trey's problem is. He's mechanically a little wonky. His lower body and upper body aren't always in sync, which causes sometimes his release point to be back here, and he's pushing the ball. It leads to arm fatigue, and it leads to inaccuracy. All that stuff is on tape. He's working with a guy who has fixed this in the past. I think this is big. That's my main takeaway, is that he's working on what he needs to work on with a guy who's had proven results in this field, and now he just needs to build the muscle memory. We don't know how long that'll take. It could be years. It could be months. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing. I love it. So we saw 2 videos. We saw 2 passes, right? Based on those passes, his throwing motion looks shorter, right? It looks better. It looks quicker. It looks more balanced.
Also, I felt like he was getting full extension on the release. Like you can't see his lower body, but you can see the ball coming off his fingers, and his arm is all the way out in front. You go back and look at some of his throws from training camp last year. It's much more 3/4, and he releases it closer to his shoulder, because his left leg, his front leg is already locked out. His lower body's done doing work, and so he's basically pushing the ball the rest of the way. Now I feel like it's a much more fluid motion where the ball, he's getting full extension on his release because his lower body hasn't finished the motion already. It's all in sync now. That's the way I see it. Maybe it's just one throw in practice though.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is it's only 2 videos, so who knows if it's actually going to, like you said, become muscle memory and change everything. But I mean, the thing about Trey Lance that makes me confident in him and his ability to eventually become good is he really has everything you could want outside of experience. He has, the mental, the physical, the attitude, the work ethic. And typically guys like that, when they work hard, they're going to improve. And so I think at some point, Trey Lance is going to improve, whether it's soon enough for the 49ers to see it or whether it's soon enough to where he stays on the Niners, right? Those are two different questions. But I feel like Trey Lance at some point is going to improve. I don't think there's really a doubt in my mind that he's unable to improve at some point. So this is perfect. And Jeff Christensen, like you said, trained Jimmy Garoppolo. So if he can help, Trey with the quick release, the short ball accuracy, if you combine that with everything that Trey Lance has naturally, like the deep ball and his mobility, I mean, he could be really good. I think this is the best case scenario for who he should be training with. And not only that, you have Patrick Mahomes next to you, which is greatness. You're working out with greatness every single day. I think it's the best case scenario. And I sent out a text to my source within the Niners to see if he knows who initiated this workout, and he hasn't responded with an answer yet. But I'll be curious to find out whether or not like the 49ers set this up or whether Trey Lance did or how that transpired, because I think that's an interesting part of it.
Trey Lance reminds me a little bit of this kid I went to high school with. He's a professional athlete. Tyson Ross. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tyson Ross. He pitched for the A's. He pitched for the Padres. Yeah, I mean, he was an all-star. He's 6'5", always the biggest kid. He played Babe Ruth in Oakland. I never played against him as a kid, but he was always famous as a kid. The big kid in Oakland. We all knew who he was. And he was so gifted, so much bigger than us, that he could his throwing motion, even in the pros, if you saw him, he was all arm. He slung that ball 97 miles an hour with his arm. So gifted. But he got hurt a lot because he didn't really use his legs that much. Didn't have to. And I feel like that's Trey. Like his throwing motion the last 2 years has been very much all arm. His legs don't do a lot of work for him. In fact, they get in the way sometimes, and he's doing a lot of like pushing and muscling, which he can do, like Tyson can do. Because look at them, they're freaking huge. They're really gifted, but over time, it's a bad habit, hurts you. And the thing about Tyson was interesting. He had a younger brother named Joey Ross, who was also in the major leagues. But when I was in high school, he was like in elementary school. He was really little. He had a growth spurt way later than Tyson. And he didn't learn to throw like Tyson. He didn't throw all arm. He threw with his whole body. He had much better mechanics than Tyson. Ended up having, I believe, a little bit more of a consistent career than Tyson. Hey, Tyson, forgive me if I'm wrong. Joey, I love both you guys. But they definitely had very different throwing motions. And I think it's because Joey's just grew later. He had a more fluid throwing motion. I think that's what Trey's trying to learn. Like, yeah, man, you've been able to do this your whole life. You've been able to be the guy who can just go out there and freaking sling it, But now you're with the best athletes in the world, and you need to refine this. And I think he gets it.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with a lot of athletes, like even coaching basketball. The kids that are naturally athletic, faster, jump higher, their skill set tends to not be as good as the kids that didn't have that athleticism, because the kids without athleticism had to learn that skill set in order to get by. Yeah, so you can see that a lot of times. But like you said, I think Trey Lance gets it, man. He's obviously working with the right people. There's really nothing in my mind that says, okay, this guy cannot get better. I just, if he gets an opportunity.
If he were like Kaepernick, sorry, Colin, but if he were like Kaepernick and was like, mechanics, I'm not that big into mechanics. If he ever said something like that, I'd be out. That's when I was out on Colin. There was a time when I thought Colin would have a better career than Andrew Luck. But as soon as he said that, I'm like, I'm out. Yeah. Because you have to constantly dedicate yourself to your craft like Brady and Breeze and Steve Young did. I think Lance is that kind of guy.
And to be fair, man, Kaepernick's mechanics were way worse than Trey Lance's.
Yes.
Way worse. Like he was like
way longer
baseball,
That's true. Way longer release. Yeah. Official B&M Music 88 says Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold era sounds horrible. I see dead people and grab my strong hand. The uncertainty of Trey, it's at least has promise. Yesterday I was watching zombie movies because it was Easter, you know what I'm saying? And I watched Evil Dead 2. Dude, Evil Dead 2, I've never seen that. Movie's hilarious. He has to like kill his hand. His hand attacks him. and his hand's like beating him over the head with uh, dishes and stuff, and then he cuts his hand off, and then he has to shoot the hand, but then he misses the hand. The hand's on the loose. It's pretty funny. The hand's like flipping him off and stuff. Funny movie. Have you seen this?
Which one?
I've never seen it. Evil Dead 2. It came out in 1987. It's a cult classic. Hilarious.
I know they made video games out of that, though, I think.
Yeah, Doom. Doom is essentially based on that movie. Christensen focuses on the feet like Walsh. Yes, and I think this is so important for Trey because his feet don't do the work for him. Throwing doesn't have to be that hard. With Trey, you can like hear him grunting almost. You can see the grunt. It doesn't have to be that hard. If it's a fluid motion, it's almost easy. And he needs to make it easier for him. Your legs make it easy for you.
One thing I did notice, though, about those videos, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but Patrick Mahomes seemed like he's using a lot more elbow torque than Trey Lance was. Like, I'm being honest. Like,
the thing with Mahomes, to me, and I think it's what I saw with Steve Young when I was a kid, they don't look like they're throwing hard. I was talking to my friend about it. He put it like this. They look like they're throwing pillows. There is just a softness to what they're doing. And I think it helps them, locate the ball and be accurate. Like with Trey and with Kaepernick back in the day, they're freaking gunning it. And with Trey, you can learn, man, you don't have to throw it that hard. It's great to be able to throw it that hard. There's going to be times that you need to fit the ball into tight windows. But a lot of the time, watch how Patrick Mahomes throws the ball, man. He's just laying it up there like he's throwing a pillow.
What I did notice is weird, though, is I want, go back and watch that video. You watch Patrick Mahomes' elbow. It comes way higher.
I know what you mean.
Than Trey Lance's does. I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was interesting too. He just has so much control of the ball. Ryan, shop smart, shop S smart. I don't get it.
I don't know.
At Ryan, shop smart, shop S smart. I don't get it. Gammon Brown. I don't get it.
I'll try to shop smart, man. I do, actually. My wife hates it.
I don't shop smart. All right. Here's an interesting one. The Niners, I think a lot of people consider the Niners the class of the NFC. I mean, they didn't get to prove it last year against the Eagles, but, Brock Purdy got hurt, and they kind of feel like they could have won that game, maybe. Plus, the Eagles lost Javon Hargrave, and the Niners signed him. So a lot of people feel like the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC, and maybe they are. But I think it's interesting that the three teams that are really on their heels in the NFC, Detroit, Seattle, Philly, I mean, let's go through it. Detroit has 5 picks in the top 95, 6, 18, 48, 55, 81. Seattle also has 5 picks in the top 95, 5, 20, 37, 52, and 83. And Philly has 4 picks in the top 95. That's 10, 30, 62, and 94. So those teams are coming for the Niners. If they're remotely good at drafting, they're going to close the gap. And the Niners have no picks in the top 95. I mean, they're good at drafting later. But it seems to me that the Niners core is a bunch of guys in their 30s, plus Bosa and Debo. This is a good year to win the Super Bowl. NFC's weak, but these teams are coming with some young talent.
Well, if they want to open that, so here's the thing: is the Super Bowl window closing? I don't know, man. I kind of feel like they've been trying to push it open for a long time. Maybe it's like painted shut, but they're peeking out. Until you get the quarterback. To me, it's not really fully open. And
it's fool's gold.
It's fool's gold, right? Get Aaron Rodgers. That window's wide open. That window's wide open. If Brock Purdy, Trey Lance turn into something that we haven't seen yet, then that will open the window. But I just believe you need a quarterback, man. And I know we got to the Super Bowl and we were pretty close with Jimmy Garoppolo, but it didn't work out because of the quarterback. Like, that was the main reason, in my opinion, that the 49ers didn't win the Super Bowl. The quarterback play was just not at a high enough level. Kyle Shanahan didn't even trust Jimmy Garoppolo. They need a quarterback. That's what they need. And so I don't think the window's closing. Now, if you're looking at just the roster outside the quarterback position, yeah, they got a couple years left before they're going to have to kind of like rebuild this thing a little bit. Not like a full rebuild, but they're going to have to replace a couple of big-time players like Trent Williams and guys like that, which is going to be tough to do. So that window they got a couple of years left on it. So what I'm saying is they need to figure it out with the quarterback within these next couple of years if they want to take advantage of those other players.
Yeah, I just feel like what's interesting about, I guess, the 2023 49ers, I feel like they're kind of done. I mean, they could always make a move mid-season, but how many of their draft picks are going to make an impact this year? Maybe 1 or 2. Maybe one or two. I mean, it's going to be another redshirt class, which I think is how the Niners like to do business, which is fine. But for this year, like, your team is kind of done, and your 3 biggest rivals in the NFC are not. at all. Like each of those guys are probably going to get 2, maybe 3 impact players in the draft coming up. Impact players, not just starters. So that's interesting. I mean, which one's it going to? Yeah.
I think honestly, if I'm pretty hard on the 49ers, but I got to give them credit for building the roster outside of the quarterback position. So I feel like even if the window we're talking about with like Trent Williams and Debo and Ayuk together and those kind of guys, all that, George Kittle, that window might be closing. But I honestly believe the 49ers will be able to find good players throughout the roster. It's just the quarterback position. So it doesn't really bother me necessarily. Like Trent Williams is going to be hard to replace. That's going to be really tough to replace. But I think the 49ers can find replacements at those other positions. But until they have their quarterback, it's all moot.
Joshua Wyatt says all the Niners offseason moves so far make the team all the Niners offseason moves so far made the team better. All the rumors would make the team worse. Sign OBJ, bring in Wash Rogers, trade Trey for 7 raspberries. Frankly, I believe none of it.
Yeah. I actually don't think
you don't think they're interested in Rodgers? I think that I believe they're interested in Rodgers. I do.
So I think they would take Rodgers, and I would support the Rodgers move. I don't think he's washed. I think he's got more talent in him, but I don't think anything is going to happen. I just don't. It doesn't seem like they're in there. But maybe they're tired of not coming close and not going all the way. Maybe this is the year they do that.
I think it would be fun to see Kyle and the Yorks have to deal with Rodgers. I think that'd be really fun. Because again, the Yorks didn't want Rodgers.
Yeah.
The Yorks made an organizational decision with their coaches and GM at the time in 2005 that they didn't like him. And it was very much his personality. And you know what? They were right about his personality. But they were wrong. They were wrong. So now they would have to like work with that guy that they didn't want to work with. And now it's worse. Seriously, now it's freaking worse.
Why
38.
Why if the 49ers wanted you and they could give you the same offer that the Jets could, why in the hell would anybody choose the Jets over the 49ers? If you look at their rosters, you look at their coach. I mean, no, actually I like Saleh, so I'm gonna take that back. But if you look at the roster, why are you going to the Jets over the Niners? Why would you do that? This is your hometown for one. Like this is where you're from.
What's most important to Rodgers? Winning? I don't know about that. What's most important to Rodgers might be control. He didn't have it in Green Bay. He wants control. And in New York, he would run the offense. It would be his offense. On the Niners, they would have to work that out, him and Kyle. You know, there'd have to be some negotiating, and that would be a little tricky considering Kyle is a control freak. So that would be one reason. But if Rodgers' main concern is winning, then it's the Niners.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why does he want control? He wanted control because I think he thought that would help them win. But if he thinks the 49ers, he can win with the 49ers roster and Kyle Shanahan, maybe he won't care about control as much.
Maybe he wants control because he's an egomaniac.
That's possible.
Cody Walker's, I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, Brady gets control. Why shouldn't I get control? I'm better than Brady. Is probably how Aaron Rodgers would think.
Yeah. I would have a hard time picking the Jets over the Niners if I'm a quarterback. Like, I'm going to the Niners, no question.
Cody Walker says, remember when Trey seemed reluctant to talk about how hard he threw the ball in his first year? Funny considering where we are now. You want to see a funny video? Go check out Google. Go search on YouTube. Phil Simms, Bill Walsh. There's an interview of Phil Simms talking about when he was in college, getting worked out by Bill Walsh. I think Phil Simms was the first quarterback taken that year. Walsh wanted him, but the Giants took him, and Phil Simms had a strong arm, and he was trying to show it off for Walsh. And Walsh was like, oh, no, that is too hard. Slow it down. He wanted a catchable ball. Obviously, he wanted Phil Simms. He wanted a guy who I'm sure he would love to coach Brett Favre and John Elway, but he wanted the guy to throw a catchable ball. That was something he wanted, to be able to take something off. So watch that interview. It's interesting. All right, let's talk about Steve Young. Let's get off the Niners for a second. Let's go historical. I think it's interesting. He's a borderline top 10 quarterback all time, Steve Young. Because, frankly, he didn't play in his 20s. And he didn't get to have the longevity that Tom Brady had because he got a lot of concussions. But I was thinking, if he played today in this rules, I mean, with the way offenses have evolved, with the way that the rules have evolved, you can't really touch quarterbacks. You can run quarterbacks a lot. Look at how Jalen Hurts plays. If he played today, you could argue that he might be the best quarterback ever. I mean, his rushing stats would be up there with any quarterback. His passing, he might lead the league in completion percentage. I mean, he'd be like Patrick Mahomes with more running ability.
Mobility.
More mobility. I mean, yeah, Joe Montana would be great too in today's NFL because, again, you couldn't hit him, and he got hit a lot too, but he wouldn't be the rushing threat that Steve Young was. I think in today's NFL, I might take Steve Young over Montana, over pretty much anyone except maybe Mahomes. Maybe.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way. Steve Young, I say it all the time. He's my favorite quarterback. He's the model to
Mine
me.
too.
He's the model of what they should try to make Trey Lance into, right? That's who you should model it after. And yeah, I think there's no question, man. I love Steve Young. I think he would be – that's tough. Patrick Mahomes, I'd probably give it to him. But I think Steve Young would be second. I think those would be the top two quarterbacks in the NFL.
I mean, Young is maybe even more accurate than Mahomes. Mahomes has a cannon that Young didn't have, but they both have that pillow touch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Steve Young was 70% accuracy, like just ridiculous.
In the 90s. In the 90s. Imagine today he'd be completing 75% of his throws.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is, you look at his, he ran like 4 times a game on the Niners. When he was younger he ran more. But on the Niners, 4 scrambles a game. Now, he would have 4, 5, 6 scrambles a game plus 3, 4, 5 zone reads a game. Like, his legs would be such a bigger factor. Kind of like how, in the 80s, you had Larry Bird, great shooter. He was shooting like 3 threes a game. If he played today, he would shoot like 12. Same with Chris Mullin. Those are guys who would probably be even better today. Larry Bird, Chris Mullin, just because of how the game's evolved. That's what I'm thinking with Steve Young. The game he was ahead of his time. He was underutilized in certain ways. Sorry, I get excited about it.
And it was fun because he was a lefty, so it's different watching it come off the left hand. And he was just the most exciting quarterback I've ever seen. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a 49er, but it just felt like he was just so exciting, like how he would create and extend plays and the things he would do. And he could make any pass on the field. Yeah, I think Steve Young is my favorite quarterback of all time. I think Mahomes, that's going to be tough. I think I like Steve Young better than Mahomes, man, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I just love Steve Young, man.
He's a more exciting runner.
Yeah. Yeah, and that he can do everything pretty much with the passing game. He can do everything Patrick Mahomes does, but he's more mobile.
And again, the reason Steve Young isn't considered the GOAT or a top 5 quarterback is because he didn't play in his 20s, had to sit behind Montana, and then he got obliterated. If you're too young to remember Steve Young, they hit him in the head so many times. And back then you could. I mean, you can't hit people in the head. You can't hit quarterbacks in the head anymore. Yeah. He could have, if he played today, he would have been playing into his 40s like everyone else. So
I think 8 concussions is what 8 of them, and that's what ended his career. I mean, if he was in today's NFL, he would not have 8 concussions.
I mean, no, he was a better player than Drew Brees.
Yeah,
I think he was a better player than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Something remarkable about Steve Young is how many concussions he's taken, and he's still very bright and intelligent, which is,
he was as good as any passer ever, statistically.
Yeah.
And he was arguably a top 3 or 4 running quarterback ever too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, that's really what Steve Young was. And it's crazy.
Mike Vick, Lamar Jackson at running. Mike Vick, Lamar Jackson. Who else?
I mean, those 3, and then Justin Fields. He's new, but he's quite exciting. But I mean, Steve Young was right there. He was the original. Randall Cunningham. People point him out. That's another guy who was ahead of his time too.
He was like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
and Justin Fields combined.
He was that good.
Yeah.
Monteture says Niners fans would hate Young as a rookie. See Trey. Yeah, it's true. Niner fans with they might have hated Joe Montana as a rookie too because he didn't play as a rookie. All right, I want to talk. That's 45 minutes of football. We're going to talk basketball for the rest of the show because the basketball playoffs are upon us. I love basketball playoffs. Can't stand regular season basketball. I pretty much ignore it. But I love playoff basketball. So I want to talk about the Warriors, but first I want to talk about Michael Jordan. So stick with us on this.
All right.
I don't think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. I want to have this discussion. He's great, of course, top 5. I'm not saying he wasn't great.
Top 5.
But I think, of course, I think, I know, right? Sorry. You could even say top 3. But I think when it's all said and done in 20 years, the greatest basketball players of all time are going to end up being LeBron and Steph. But they're not done yet. Those 2 guys are going to have a level of longevity, I think, that no one's going to match. I think LeBron and Steph are both going to play till like Tom Brady levels, like 45. I think they both have that Tom Brady mentality. And I think the reason that Michael Jordan has his aura is because of the 90s and his shoes. The shoes are amazing. The shoes, no athlete has ever marketed himself via shoes like Jordan. It's important. He has a cultural impact because of the shoes. My nephew just got Jordan 3s for his birthday. He's 13. Never saw him play. And yet somehow he wants Jordans because those are the shoes. Also, he never had a rival in the 90s. He had a rival in the 80s.
What?
He had the Pistons. In the 90s, there was never a team. I'll let you go. I won't interrupt you. I promise. He never had a team that could rival him in the 90s. He beat the Lakers at the end, Magic in his final season. Kareem wasn't on that team. He beat the Trailblazers. He beat Charles Barkley. He beat the Seattle Supersonics, and he beat the Jazz twice. None of those teams were dynasties. In the 80s, there were dynasties. Like Magic had Bird. Those two were legit rivalry. LeBron and Steph. Those two are legit rivalry. And that's why neither of those guys are flawless in the finals. I mean, the reason that Jordan has such a crazy reputation is the 6-0 in the finals thing. It's legit. But, I mean, he couldn't have done that in the 80s. He couldn't have done that in the 2010s. It was a little bit of a function of the fact that the NBA expanded a bunch and there weren't that many great teams in the 90s. That's the way I saw it.
What about the Pistons?
Hey, man, the Pistons beat him 3 out of 4 times in the playoffs. And that was the 80s.
And he ended it.
Right? He did. He beat him once. And that was impressive.
Here's the thing. Are you talking about longevity, or are you talking about the best basketball player to ever play? Or are you talking about over a period of time, a career?
Well,
or are you talking
to me,
about
like
the best basketball player of all time?
That's a great question. I think the greatest of all time, longevity factors in. Because in football, if you're talking about the greatest running back ever, and just like who had the highest ability, you could say it's Bo Jackson or Terrell Davis or something like that. But they're not the greatest running back of all time because they didn't have enough longevity. I think that matters in sports. And what's interesting with Jordan, when he was 38, he came back and played. He played with the Wizards. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't LeBron. LeBron's 38 right now, and LeBron is still putting up the same numbers he put up 10 years ago. And I think Steph's going to be like that too. When he gets to 40, he's still going to be playing. He's still going to be shooting 40%. He's still going to be averaging 25. That's the way I look at it.
Here's my thing. LeBron has one of the best careers, if not the best career of all time. Michael Jordan is the best player of all time. Michael Jordan has never lost a championship in college, in the Olympics, in the FIBA, or in the NBA. He is 11-0 in championships. Here's another way to think of it. I really respect LeBron. He's top 3 or 4 for me. To me, it goes Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, or Steph Curry, LeBron James. That's how I see it. And it's just, how old are you, man? And I don't mean
35.
Okay, I'm 43.
35. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I've been a Warriors fan my whole entire life, but the Warriors kind of sucked when I was growing up, right? So in order to watch good basketball, I'm watching every single Michael Jordan game. Just yesterday, I made my kids watch a whole game because they were kind of saying the same stuff that you're saying right now. I'm like, you got to watch whole games. Just watch Michael Jordan play a whole game. He was he was
great, man. I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm not saying like, hey, that great player you thought was great. He wasn't great.
10 scoring titles.
Yes.
9 all defensive teams. So
definitely in the conversation.
Both sides of the ball.
Yes.
The 3-point line wasn't even invented until I think his second year in the NBA. So there's no doubt in my mind if he grew up shooting 3-pointers, he would be a great shooter. One of his favorite shots was the deep 2. And it's just because he grew up playing, there was no 3-point line, right? So he never worked on being a 3-point shooter. Michael Jordan was the most clutch player I've ever seen in my life, doing the most amazing things. There'd be no Kobe without Michael Jordan. Kobe wanted to be like Michael Jordan. LeBron wanted to be like Michael Jordan. What LeBron has going for him is his athleticism and his size and his longevity. That's what makes LeBron such a great factor. He's been good for a long time, but he does not have that clutch DNA that Michael Jordan had. Like, he never lost a championship in his life, and he was good on both sides of the ball. There's no
but Michael Jordan, first of all, they say Jordan, Montana never lost championships. Again, I agree. I feel like Jordan's legacy is a lot like Montana's. And Montana was considered the GOAT for a long time, but no longer is. Why? Because Tom Brady's longevity. Tom Brady isn't undefeated in the Super Bowl. Not at all. But the fact that he just kept going into his mid 40s is undeniable. He got a 7th ring. LeBron could do that. Steph could do that. Jordan couldn't. He fell off. He was heavily reliant on his athleticism and his bounce. He was always a great player. But at 38, he wasn't like LeBron is, like I think Steph will be. But we'll see. Their careers isn't over.
Here's how you ask.
One more thing I want to say before we move on. Before you go, this is the point I wanted to make. I can still go back to the fact that he didn't beat any great teams in the finals. If you took Jordan off the Bulls and put Kobe on that team, Kobe and Scottie Pippen, would they have lost any of those 6 championships? Would they have lost to the Jazz if they had, prime Kobe instead of prime Jordan? I don't think so.
But here's the thing. I like Kobe. I love Kobe. He's my second, right? But he is everything he learned. His whole game was modeled after Jordan. So you can't, right? Jordan was the model for Kobe Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
All his moves, everything he did,
mm-hmm.
he learned it from Michael Jordan. So that you can't surpass him if he has more championships and you learned everything.
Jordan was definitely better than Kobe.
So yeah.
I'm just making the point that I feel like there was no team that was going to knock off the Bulls. The Bulls were the best team. Pippen was great too. Jordan never won anything without Pippen. He needed Pippen.
2 3-peats, but that's like saying Steph never won anything without Draymond, right? But here's the thing:
Draymond's great too.
If you give LeBron Michael Jordan's skill set, is Michael Jordan a better or a worse player? Or excuse me, you give LeBron Michael Jordan's skill set, is LeBron a better or worse player?
If you gave him his skill set, well, he'd probably be a better player, but he's 6'8".
Yes,
he's 6'8".
Yeah,
and I think like that size differential is important. Like the fact he's a better rebounder than Jordan, but in addition, like he's a better passer than Jordan, and he's a more efficient scorer than Jordan in every single way except for free throw shooting.
I disagree with all of that. I disagree with you're my guy.
Stats
because of he's a better. What do you mean it's just stats? Like what
rebounds, assists, 3-point shooting percentage, field goal percentage. Those are just stats.
So you're saying LeBron is bigger and he has a longer career.
More efficient, longer career. I mean, affects the game in more ways. Jordan was a better defender for sure. For sure. Better free throw shooter for sure. But I feel like LeBron's better in every single way. And then you got Curry, who might end up as the greatest player of all time, better than both of them. Because the greatest shooter and a great facilitator changed the game. And again, I think he's got 10 more years in his career. People don't talk about that with Steph, but he is so driven. Watch. He's not stopping.
I like Steph. I think he's going to be around a long time, but he's not a better facilitator than LeBron or Jordan, in my opinion. He's not a good passer. He's okay. He has the highest turnover rate. He has the most turnovers on the Warriors in the NBA. Damn near. I think he's top 5 in the NBA turnovers.
Whoa, that was blasphemous what you just said.
Yeah.
An okay passer, Steph Curry?
Yeah, he's
all right. You watch his whole career, and that's what you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steph Curry is not even a real. Here's the thing. I love Steph
You think
Curry.
Jordan was a better passer than Steph?
Yes. No question. No question.
Okay.
Yes, no question. Look, I'm a Warriors fan. I love Steph Curry.
Jordan was a ball hog.
But Steph Curry's not even a real point guard. He's not.
Yes, he is.
A majority of Steph is great. He's great. But he doesn't run the point. Right? He doesn't drive and kick out and facilitate. That's not what he does. Draymond's more of
he can.
Draymond is a better passer than Steph Curry.
I mean, no. He just has to play off the ball because he's the greatest shooter of all time. But when he's on the ball, too, in the playoffs, I mean, it's not like he's playing shooting guard to close the game in the fourth quarter of playoff. He's the point guard.
Arguing against Steph Curry right now.
I can't believe you put yourself in this position. You said he's an okay passer wearing a Warriors hat.
It's not his strength. It's not.
Manny Fresh says, no, we got you. Not his strength. Damn, Steph's going to come on the show just to disagree with you. Raymond Martinez Jr. says, Grant, Jordan was so good, his teams won a three-peat. He took a break to play baseball and do whatever and still won another three-peat again. Laugh my ass off. Stop, G. Again, I think this is people my age and older really romanticizing the 90s. Like, just because we were kids.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
Brady not a GOAT. He lost championship. Sorry. Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Big Tim 3 says, MJ changed the game. Your favorite player is MJ.
There's two players that changed the game more than anybody.
Michael
Jordan, Steph Curry. They changed the game more than anybody.
How did Michael Jordan change the game? He could dunk.
No, not just that. The way he dunked, right? But also his post fadeaway, like his mid-range, back to the basket, post fadeaway. That's where Kobe learned it from. That's where LeBron learned it from. Jordan was the first guy really doing that. Him and Reggie Miller.
But isn't the mid-range dead? That's dead. Who plays like that anymore?
But he's the one that started that, right? And it didn't die until Steph came. So most two influential players of all time.
It's dead now, though. Black Orchid says Jordan scored 60 points without 3-point plays. I'm not saying he wasn't good. People will be like, "You think Jordan isn't good?" Yeah. Absolutely great player.
You're 8 years younger than me. I was pretty young when I was watching Jordan. You probably watched most of his later age after he should have retired and wrapped it up, right? But did you watch him? Like, did you watch full games growing up in the 80s and 90s with Michael Jordan?
I watched him mostly when he came back in his second stint. I mean, when he retired the first time, I was 5.
That's why. I promise that's why. And I don't. My kids.
But I watched a lot of Michael Jordan. I understand he was a great player and a great athlete. All I'm saying is, the best team he ever beat in the finals was the Jazz. The 90s were kind of a down era for the NBA. They expanded a lot. There weren't dynasties. And it's not his fault, but there was no team or no player that could match him. And like, it's not because he was by far the greatest player of all time. It just means that he missed. I mean, his team couldn't compete in the 80s, and he wasn't good in the 2000s on the Wizards. He was good for that 8-year stretch. He was phenomenal for that 8-year stretch. It just so happens that there wasn't a team that could. There was no Spurs, no Warriors, no LeBron. No Lakers.
I think you're underestimating the teams that he played against. He made them look that way. Here's the thing. He won 3 finals in a row, quit, went and played baseball, came back.
What team in the 90s would have been an all-time great dynasty if Jordan hadn't existed?
Man, now
Utah. Karl Malone and freaking – no, man. To me, like, those teams weren't that good. To me, like the freaking Spurs, the Supersonics with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, like that wasn't enough.
The Jazz, the Suns, the Knicks,
Barkley.
Yeah.
No, to be his biggest rival was the Pistons. And the Pistons beat him 3 out of 4 times. That's why Isaiah Thomas is salty, because he's like, wait a second, I had their number.
Well, when he was young, he was learning, but when he got to his level, nobody could touch him again. Yeah.
Official BNA Music 88 says one thing that LeBron and Kobe have over MJ is that he never carried trash team far.
And
never did a damn thing without Scottie Pippen.
But can we bring up a really important point, right?
Yeah.
You said the 90s was like trash, basically, right? But here's the thing.
I tweeted that. Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you look at the football in the 90s for quarterbacks, what we were talking about with Steve Young, getting hit and that's how you could play defense with a hand on a guy the whole time. You could have your hand on a guy. You can't do that now. It's way easier to score.
But if you remember, you couldn't touch Jordan in the 90s. You could smack him around in the 80s, and the Pistons did. But once he won that first title, and I think this is another thing. I feel like the NBA, they profited off the rivalry of Bird and Magic in the 80s. Once those guys retired right around the same time, they knew the whole league was Jordan. There was no rivalry anymore. And it was all about Jordan's the greatest player of all time. Jordan's Jesus Christ on a basketball field. Buy his shoes and watch greatness play. And so you couldn't touch him, man. He got a lot of foul calls in the 90s.
All the greats do.
Of course. But I'm just saying, like, this whole thing, like, he played in a rougher era. Like, yeah, if everyone else did. He didn't. He was hand checking. I
don't know, man. It was rough back then. Like
there was illegal defense back then. He could go one-on-one every time. How many times did he get the ball and just clear out, and 4 people would go to the corner and he would go one-on-one? He could do that his whole career. You can't do that anymore. LeBron can't do that. LeBron gets doubled.
He was getting doubled all the time.
There's illegal defense in the 90s. You couldn't do stuff like that.
You could double team in the 90s.
There was illegal defense though. You couldn't. You had to be guarding someone at all times. You couldn't wait. They couldn't play zone.
They used to double team the shit out of Michael Jordan. I was just watching it yesterday.
But you can't if you cleared out, you literally can't play zone defense. You have to guard someone. You had to be guarding someone.
Zone people don't play zone a lot, even now. I mean, the Warriors will throw it in every now and then. If you got a good shooting team, you're not going to play zone. But they were doubling the shit out of Michael Jordan back in the day.
Josh Wyatt says the further we get away from the 90s, the more comfortable we are disrespecting Jordan. Jordan was inevitable.
I think people got to watch. I watch full games. Like I would watch full seasons like I do with the Warriors now. I've always been a Warriors fan, but when Michael Jordan was different. I'm telling you, different.
I have a theory. Everyone that thinks that Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time also thinks that the 90s are the greatest era of rap music of all time. Am I wrong?
It's facts.
It's true.
Both
it's true.
facts.
I'm telling you. Some people, people love the 90s. Yeah. William Bennett says the fade was the name. The fade was the name. Was named the Jordan. The fade was named the Jordan. I'm sorry. I don't understand.
Talking about fade away.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I hate Jordan, but I'll admit he's the GOAT. Why do you hate Jordan? I don't hate Jordan. What do you do to you? I think it would be cool if Jordan played today because Jordan was the kind of guy who would gamble a lot and drink before games. And he had a very crazy lifestyle that would have been controversial if it had taken place during the social media time.
He's the most competitive guy I've ever seen, man. He is not losing. Like he is. That's who he is.
But he was also like a big time gambler. Like people, that would have been so. Like he was at casinos the night before playoff games. I mean, if they had cell phones like back then, or if he was doing that now, man, it'd be controversial.
They didn't. Yeah,
he'd be controversial. Like LeBron is controversial now. He never does anything like that. Can you imagine if LeBron? I think again, that was another product of the 90s, man. Just before, back when celebrities could be big time celebrities and you didn't know everything about them because social media didn't exist. He was larger than life in the 90s. He really was. Yeah. Adam Gardner. Grant, how's the offseason going for you? If we trade Lance, I don't think I can tout being a Niners fan for a while because it would be the dumbest freaking thing we've done in a long time. Having a good offseason, can't complain. And that's why I think you're going to be right and Larry's going to be wrong because the Niners don't want Adam Gardner to stop being a Niner fan.
Man, Grant, if they trade Trey Lance and don't get like an Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to be on their shit. Brock Purdy better be that guy that they think he is because I'm going to be on him tough like the Niners. You're going to hear a lot of criticism coming from me.
Big Tim 3 says Jordan had kids playing with their tongue out. I'm telling you, Jordan is just a phenomenon of marketing from the shoes to the tongue to the logo. He owned the 90s. And I think the NBA would have died. It could have freaking died in the 90s without Jordan. There was no rivalry. There were no dynasties. He carried the whole league for a decade. To me, it was a downtime. All of a sudden, he retires, and then Tim Duncan comes in the league. Kobe comes in the league. You got the Lakers, who are a dynasty. The Spurs, who are a dynasty. LeBron comes in the league. Steph comes in the league, and all of a sudden, the league is great right now. But in the 90s, it was freaking...
Jordan made it, though, to where those teams couldn't be dynasty.
Patrick Ewing? Yeah, absolutely. He carried the league. The league, and I think that's part of his legacy. It's part of his legacy.
Dude was like nothing I've ever seen in my life. People name their kids Jordan. Right? How many kids are named Jordan right now? There's probably someone watching this right now named Jordan because of this guy, man.
You know what I love is I used to be like every year in the NFL draft there were like 4 Shaquilles. I love that. I was like, of course. I think we're getting a little bit past that time though.
Yeah.
Kyler V says Steph has kids launching from 35. It's true. It's true. Yeah, Kenny G says MJ didn't get to load manage, played all games.
Every game.
But he did load manage though. He retired twice. That's load managing.
Oh, he's
kidding me? That's retired. Load management.
Retired and couldn't miss it. I wish he would have stayed retired. My wish is he never quit to play baseball and he never came back after retired after his sixth championship. Yeah.
Adrian Garcia says the idea that the idea that only the older generation is in love with MJ is false. I'm 19 and I take MJ over LaFlop James all day. All right, fair enough, Adrian. I didn't mean to paint with broad strokes like that. Thanks for putting that out there. The woke sports fan says, Grant, you were revealing too much truth. GOAT 1 of 1. Thank you, man. No. I appreciate it. I feel like people don't want to hear this right now, but their kids will love it.
Yeah, the kids are going to love it. Yeah.
To quote Back to the Future, I hate Jordan because he would kill the Knicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Knicks were the biggest rival to him in the 90s, right? He had to go through Patrick Ewing and Allen Houston, and that team was good, but not all-time great.
And can we add something to it? It's not just that he won, and it's not just that he dunked. It's how he looked doing it. There was nobody that had that much style. The guy would float. He would just walk in air. It was just wild. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. All right, let's talk Warriors-Kings. NorCal showdown. Warriors against the Kings in the first round of the playoffs. The Kings are the 3 seed. Had a hell of a season. Ending their playoff drought, it kind of feels like the We Believe year when I was a kid, where the Warriors, except this team is the 3 seed, and the Warriors, you might think, are the underdogs. Who are you picking to win?
The Warriors. Yeah,
me too. Are you kidding? Yeah. Like good seasons, Sacramento. Good season, guys. Yeah, good season, Sac. Yeah.
Yeah, and shout out to Mike Brown for good coach, man. He really turned that program around. Fox, Sabonis, they outstanding season, had a good run, but it kind of reminds me of when like the Warriors are the Lakers in the 90s and the Kings are the Kings, right? Like, yeah, okay, good job, guys, but I don't believe that. I feel like they're too young and inexperienced to have any kind of sustainable success in the playoffs. Draymond was just on talking yesterday about it, and this is kind of how the NBA is, and this is kind of why you don't like it during the season. But Draymond basically said nothing matters that happens in the season. The only way they're going to remember your team is by what happens in the playoffs. And the Warriors, all they really wanted to do, if Draymond believes that, who's the leader of the team, they probably all believe that. They're just trying to get in the playoffs, and now they're going to turn it up. They just beat Portland by like 57. GP2's back, Wiggins back. Like, good job, Kings. But I think the Warriors in 6. That's how I got it.
I like basketball because defense still matters in the playoffs. Like in football, I guess defense matters in the playoffs. Like ask the Niners, they got screwed up by the Eagles' defense. But once you get to the Super Bowl, there's no more defense. It's almost like an all-star game. In basketball, there's this thing called playoff basketball, where all of a sudden the rules change. And you can hit people harder, and you can get away with more contact. It's stupid in a sense. Like the whole sport changes in the playoffs, but it does. And we've seen how the Warriors play in the playoffs. They play amazing defense in the playoffs. So I don't really care what they did on the road this year, what their numbers were. They have Draymond Green. They got Gary Payton back. They're going to get Wiggins back. They still have Klay Thompson. They're going to play great defense in this series.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the Kings are. I mean, who do the Kings have that's going to lock anyone up on the Niners? I mean, excuse me. The Warriors.
Yeah, the Kings are good offense, man, but their defense that's not it. And here's the thing is, like, even the rotations. Kerr during the season, he's trying to keep his stars healthy. He's playing 10 guys, 11 guys sometimes. When you get to the playoffs, it's 7 or 8. It's 7 or 8 your best players. You're down to 7 or 8 of your best players. Lamb's probably not going to see the damn court. I barely at all. Like
it'll be off the bench. It'll be Poole. Well, essentially, if Wiggins comes back, it'll be Poole, Peyton,
GPT,
DiVincenzo, and
nice.
who's good, and then maybe Kuminga. Maybe we'll have to see what the young guys got. But that's 8 or 9 right there. That's it. That's your rotation.
That's all they're going to play unless the game's out of hand. I'm telling you, people, they sleeping on the Warriors. Like the Warriors, this is a professional. 4 out of the last 8 seasons, they've won championships. They know what they're doing here. They were trying to win as many games as possible while also keeping their stars healthy. Like Steph Curry would sit half the fourth quarter in like the first 41 games. Like it's not the same. So you're going to see a completely different team in the playoffs from the Warriors than you've seen throughout the season.
Also, like, I remember when the Warriors were coming up, kind of like the Kings are coming up. It took them a while to beat teams with championship pedigree in the playoffs. Yeah. Like, they lost to the Spurs. They lost to the Clippers, who weren't even a championship team. And I think those experiences built the Warriors into what they were. I mean, I think that's the way I say it. I mean, you were just arguing that for Michael Jordan, right? He needed all those losses to the Pistons to become the great player that he was. Yeah. So the Kings, like, you're really going to beat the Warriors in the first round of your first playoff. Maybe, but I don't think they're going to do to the Warriors what the Warriors did to the Mavericks 15 years ago. I just don't see it because that Mavericks team had a bad coach that got worked by Don Nelson. I mean, Steve Kerr's not going to get like that was Avery Johnson worked under Don Nelson, if I remember correctly. So Don Nelson was schooling his former underling.
Yeah,
it's the other way around here. Like Mike Brown worked for Steve Kerr. Like it's not going to happen. Mike Brown's not going to school Steve Kerr in this matchup.
No. And I like Mike Brown. He's doing great with what he has. But the talent level is just the pedigree, the talent level, the history, the resume. They don't match up. I'm sorry. Fox is great, especially in the fourth quarter. He was elite. He's elite in the fourth quarter, best player in the fourth quarter in the NBA, which is huge in close games in the playoff. But I just don't see.
Wait till you put Gary Payton II on him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's so important for the Warriors.
Even Dante.
Wait till you put Wiggins on Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, wait till you put Draymond Green on Sabonis. Like, they're just going to have a tough time. Sacramento's going to have a tough time.
Yeah. Warriors in 6, and I was being nice.
Yeah, it could be worse than that. William Bennett says, if Kyle trades Trey without a Super Bowl, he should never be a head coach again. Niner fans starting to get a little pissed. I understand. Patrick Moody says, do you think the Niners could trade the Vikings a 3rd-round pick for Daniil Hunter to be the other D-end instead of drafting one? He may can mentor Jackson.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about it much, man.
Hold on. Let me look. I mean, it's all about money. Let's see. Hold on.
3rd round.
Hunter. Hold on. It's pretty expensive. Also, there'd be a dead. No. Hold on. Trade. No, there would be $18 million dead cap hit for the Vikings if they trade him. They're not going to trade him. So trades are really tricky in the NFL. That's not going to happen. Josh Wyatt says Jordan made the league look weak, but it really wasn't. Jordan was just that good. Love Steph, but he doesn't make the rest of the league irrelevant. The way I look is like, I think the expansion really affected the league. There weren't enough great players to fill out all those teams. Now there are. Now there's more great players in the world than there were 30 years ago. But in the 80s, there were fewer teams. There were more rivalries. And also, if we're going to talk about rings defining who the greatest player of all time is, about Bill Russell. How many? I mean, he won in college. He won 2 in college at freaking USF. USF. Then he won $1 million with the Celtics. I think he lost 1. So, and people say, well, there weren't that many teams in the league back then. Yeah, but that means every team had really good players, and he had to go through Wilt Chamberlain, and frankly did it standing on his head. Made Wilt Chamberlain look like a nobody. So shout out Oakland legend Bill Russell.
I think I'm guilty. When it comes to Bill Russell, I'm guilty of what a lot of people are guilty of when it comes to Michael Jordan. They just weren't old enough to witness it. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, he wasn't putting up big numbers on offense. He was the quintessential defense wins championship guy. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's an interesting conversation. The game has definitely evolved. Last topic, and it's a Warriors topic. The James Wiseman trade. It's interesting because it's a little bit like, I think there's some serious parallels to the Trey Lance situation. The Warriors drafted this James Wiseman guy. He didn't play much at all in college. He needed time to play. Didn't get it. They traded him, and he started putting up numbers for the Pistons, although the Pistons weren't winning. And I think a lot of Warrior fans were like, man, that was an awful trade, and the Niners better not make the same mistake with Lance. Well, I think there's some differences in this situation because Wiseman, frankly, I don't think will be helping this Warriors team. And I think Gary Payton is extremely important for this Warriors team. And that's all I really care about, because as long as they have Steph Curry and Draymond and Klay Thompson, they are legit contenders. You know, it's not like they're missing something. So that's a key role player for them. And Wiseman isn't. So I still think that was a good trade. Even if Wiseman ends up becoming a really good player, I think they need Gary Payton right now.
Well, I guess, I mean, here's the thing is I wish they would have just re-signed Gary Payton and never let him leave in the first place and kept Wiseman. That's what I want, because I think Wiseman is going to be a good player. And you're right, he may not be the perfect fit right now on this run that the Warriors are trying to make, but he's elite. And, Looney, very underrated player, but if he goes down, the Warriors don't have a lot of size. Thankfully, Looney is very durable, and Draymond can cover these big guys a lot. But if you somehow lost Looney, they need a big guy. And Wiseman, he's not been a good defender, not been a good rebounder for how big he is. He's a really good offensive player, but I feel like Wiseman has such elite high-end talent that I would have loved to see the Warriors keep him, even if you're not going to play him in the playoffs. They should have played him throughout the season. If they're going to play guys like freaking Lamb, and I know different positions, but if you're going to play guys like Lamb and all these other dudes, play Wiseman. Let him get better. Let's see what you can get from him. But yeah, I would have loved them keep GP2 and Wiseman. They didn't have to do either. I think it was kind of stupid.
You said a minute ago, like, he doesn't defend very well. He doesn't rebound very well. Yeah. I'm out on centers that lack those two skill sets. To me, in the NBA, I'm such a football guy. In the NBA today, I think the center position is basically a role player position, and you have to defend. You have to defend multiple positions, and you have to rebound. If you can't do those things, I think you're a losing player. I think you get played off the court in the playoffs. Like Karl Anthony Towns, hell of an offensive player, no defense. I mean, I don't think he's a winning player. I mean, maybe Wiseman becomes Karl Anthony Towns one day, and maybe you could say it's a successful career, but the Warriors have a specific formula. I mean, Kevon Looney is their center. I remember when he was at UCLA, he was a small forward at UCLA. Draymond Green was a small forward at Michigan State. They keep converting these small forwards and turning them into centers. I think that's kind of where the league is going. You kind of have to be smaller, a 7-foot guy who doesn't rebound or defend, but needs a lot of shots. So you're not really a role player. You need the ball a lot, and you're not going to shoot a lot of threes. So your offensive game is twos. No, I'm out. Detroit, good luck with that.
Yeah, I just think he's not a good match, being that you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But I think if you take Steph Curry and Klay Thompson off the team, then a Wiseman would be very important for the Warriors. I think that's just how I see it. And, hopefully they'll last long. The good thing about Steph Curry, Klay Thompson is they're shooters. Their game can last forever, right?
I feel like Kuminga is the player that will eventually give the Warriors everything that they hoped Wiseman would give them. And again, that's a small forward who's going to eventually end up being a center for them because he doesn't shoot and you don't really want him handling the ball. But in a pick and roll with Steph Curry, I mean, Kuminga has the hops. He could be, remember Sean Marion? We were kids. Yeah. I mean, he has that kind of a skill set. And I think in today's NBA, Sean Marion could play some center. So that's what I see Kuminga doing. He gives you that roller because Steph's never had that in his whole career. Can you imagine? You were talking about Steph not being, that still pisses me off that you said that. But you said Steph not about his passing. What if he had Amari Stoudemire like Steve Nash did? He never had. They had Andrew Bogut and Kevon Looney and Draymond Green, guys who don't score. Kuminga could be that guy, and I think if he does, then it doesn't matter.
I think Kuminga is going to be. If you put Kuminga on another team, he'd be a star next year or two. The only reason why he may not be a superstar is because he's on the Warriors behind Steph Curry and those guys. They're going to be the stars of that team. But Kuminga has a ton of talent. I don't know. I like Wiseman.
He accepts his role too. He accepts he was a lottery pick, but he understands on this team, you're coming off the bench. You're going to get 15 minutes a game if you don't play that well. You got to rebound and defend and work from there. And he does it. Wiseman was like, man, that's not really my game. Well, dude, you can't play for this team then. Kuminga gets it. I like that about him.
If Kuminga was on the Kings, he'd be a star, man.
He'd get shots too.
Yeah.
He'd get shots too. But he's learning to play the right way in a championship team, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully they keep him a long time. I think he's phenomenal talent. Yeah.
I think he's a good one. Michael says, I would love to see Curry against Larry Bird. I would love to see Larry Bird and Chris Mullin in today's NBA. Guys who were great shooters, but only shot 3-4 threes a game because that was the league back then. Now, if you're a good shooter, even if you're a mediocre shooter, you're shooting 8 threes a game. Can you imagine Chris Mullin today? It would be.
Yeah.
He'd be. Oh my God.
Steph changed the game.
Steph changed the game for the better.
Yeah.
Well, for the better.
Unless you're
less isolation
in the NBA, maybe. It's tough in the younger ages, because the thing about Steph Curry is he earned the right to take those shots. He put in the work, and he has the evidence to be looked at. But
true. Jordan Poole did not earn the right to take those freaking shots.
You got 7th graders who think they have the right to take those shots nowadays. So it's hard.
Another thing I didn't like about 90s basketball, and this is me being a curmudgeon, is it was slow. It was slow, and it was very isolation oriented, as opposed to the 80s with the Showtime. And now, which is very much like a European style with the but it was very much there's a lot of isolation in the 90s. It was a much slower. It was a lot of walking the ball up the court. Now it's much more of a European style with the pick and roll and that kind of stuff.
I think there was a lot more half court sets. They ran half court offense more. Back then. Yeah.
Low post, all that mid post, walking it up. It was the way it was back then.
Yeah, it was great.
It was great. The 90s in general were just phenomenal. This was a great show. It wasn't quite as good as this show. Remember, everyone, Ryan thinks that Steph Curry's highly overrated. Let him hear it on Twitter, everyone.
No. Don't. What?
Come at him, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for watching. Larry's going to be on the radio all week, 2 to 6 on 95.7, so check him out. He won't be here with me today. So I'll probably do a Cohn phone in the afternoon if you guys want to call in, and I'll get Larry later this week. So I'll see you guys later.
Right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yes, sir.